Good afternoon. This afternoon, we are here for a special session of the PhillyStat program. We're here, I am Jackie Linton, the Director of the Center of Excellence, which coordinates the PhillyStat program. We're here today to talk about AVI, which is the Actual Valuation Initiative. I'd like to have the people around the table introduce yourselves, starting at my right, and we'll finish after the introductions. The mayor will open the program.
My name is Paul Danella. I'm the Director of Taxpayer Services for the Revenue Department.
Hi, I'm Andrea Menino. I'm the Special Assistant to the Revenue Commissioner.
Hi, Frank Breslin, Deputy Revenue Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Keith J. Richardson, Revenue Commissioner.
Richard McKeithen, Chief Assessment Officer, Office of Property Assessment.
Marissa Waxman, Deputy Administrator at the Office of Property Assessment.
Mike Piper, also Deputy Administrator at the Office of Property Assessment.
Eva Gladstein, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity.
Anna Adams, I'm Chief of Staff of the Finance Director.
Rob Duba, Finance Director.
Suzanne B. Miller, First Deputy Chief of Staff to the Mayor.
Everett Gillison, Chief of Staff to the Mayor.
Rich Negrin, Deputy Mayor and Managing Director. Tumar Alexander, Deputy Chief of Staff to the Mayor.
Desiree Peter-Kimbell, City Representative and Director of Communications to the Mayor of the City of Philadelphia.
Jackie, thank you and all of you for participating in this very special session. I think this is a great opportunity for us to share information with the citizens of this great city and property owners all across Philadelphia about what by some is considered to be a rather historic reform here in this city. For the first time ever, we will actually and have begun the process of fixing properly the property assessment system here in the city of Philadelphia to make it fair, equitable, and understandable to all the citizens and property owners across Philadelphia. I want to commend certainly Richie McKeithen, our Chief Assessment Officer, and his entire team, all the partners around the table. We want to make sure that our citizens have as much information as possible. At times, this can sound very complicated, but our goal is to make it as easily understandable as possible. And so in the course of this session, we'll go through some of the whys and the wherefores. Why are we doing this? What does the notice that you received in the mail mean? Different opportunities for outreach in communities. In addition to, of course, access by phone, by the internet, and a number of other means. But I always think that having the opportunity to see someone in person, to talk about something that can be very delicate and personal, the ownership of property, and certainly for the vast majority of Philadelphians, that means a home. That's the place where families thrive. That's what makes communities strong here in the city. And so there's a lot of anxiety out there, and I want to make sure that we're communicating as broadly as possible. So let me just really kind of open with a fundamental question. What is AVI, the Actual Value Initiative? Why is it necessary? Why is the city of Philadelphia doing that? And I'd at least start with a couple of our partners, certainly the finance director and our chief assessment officer, and let's walk through that.
So I think I'll start with why it was necessary, and then Richie can tell you exactly what we've done. So we had a broken property tax system. Properties were valued in inconsistent ways, so you could have different properties on the same block that had the same characteristics that would be valued very differently. People didn't understand their assessments. We had a system where you paid your tax not based on your entire assessment, but based on a fraction of it. So we had a system that was not fair, that was confusing, and that had inaccurate values. We decided years ago to fix it. The voters agreed. There was a ballot question that passed overwhelmingly that was designed to fix the system.
That was in 2010.
2010. Yeah. Set up a new office, the Office of Property Assessment. We then recruited a first-class chief assessor, Richie McKeithen, who then can tell you a little bit about what we've done since he got here.
Okay. what I've done since my arrival is to start the path of a full-blown comprehensive reassessment throughout the entire city. And that included doing things that involved industry standards, things that are done in any city throughout the country, whether it be Philadelphia, Chicago, Washington, D.C., wherever. We started by looking at things like for residential properties, sales, permits, field inspections, market analysis, clear up until the day where we mailed out notices. In addition to that, we set up a system, and we'll touch on this, I think, a little bit further, called the First Level Review program, where a property owner can grieve their assessment with the Office of Property Assessment without having a formal hearing and have more dialogue with the Office of Property Assessment.
And when you say they can ask questions about how their assessment was done, why is it at whatever level it is, and in some instances we may find that some may be lower than the property owner thinks it should be, and in some instances certainly we'll have some property owners suggest that it might be too high or overestimated. How does that happen? Talk a little bit about the science and the art of trying to figure out what is a property worth to someone else out in the open marketplace.
Properties are assessed based on some basic things like sales. The comparable sales methodology is the most used methodology in our profession for residential single-family homes. What that involves is looking at properties that have sold, and we have the city broken down into different geographic areas, and we call these geographic areas GMAs, which are little small pockets of activity that have occurred in various residential neighborhoods. And so sales are analyzed. What we do is we look at sales that have occurred in the last 4 to 5 years, and we time adjust those sales so we can capture every bump in the market so everything is smoothed out clear up into our effective date, which is January 1. We look at properties that are comparable to other properties in the neighborhood. We have every property broken out, whether it's a twin, whether it's a freestanding single-family residential home, whether it's a rancher, etc., 2-story, 3-story, etc. We look at sales that have occurred, time-adjusted sales, arm's length transactions, not things that have occurred with share sales or intra-family sales, or sales with a property has changed from one condition to another from the point in time where it's sold to the point in time where we...
What do you mean by that? Change? What? How does the condition change?
In Philadelphia, like most cities, when the city is sort of changing over, when the market is moving, there are neighborhoods that are more active than others, and you'll have properties that sold in poor condition, and they may have sold for a lower sale price, but upon our effective date of assessment, they have changed, meaning they have been renovated, gutted out, and sold for a higher price. And so when you see sales that have occurred for a lower value as far as sale amount is concerned, and then you see a higher assessment, that's a lot of what that is. We looked at, categorized all these type of properties. We went out and did field inspections. We reviewed permits so we could capture every little minute thing about every particular property as much as we could. And then from that point, we levied an assessment based on the type of property you had, based on where it was located, based on several things like that.
So suppose you've been in your home 40, 50, 60 years, and maybe you paint it from time to time, and you generally take care of the property, but on your block or in the particular neighborhood, maybe there have been some of these, complete renovations, everything taken out and everything new put in, and it's happened around you. Is it possible in that situation that if the homes still pretty much stay the same, if you have a number of renovated properties on a block, but you have not really done anything to your property, would your market value go up, or could your assessment go up under that circumstance, even though you haven't really done major renovation?
Your assessment won't go up at the same rate as those properties that what you described were gutted out. That what the mayor just described was a property that we would call gutted out, totally renovated. Your property wouldn't go up at the same rate as those properties. Your property may be affected because the neighborhood started to take off and became popular and became a desirable place to be for residents. But we do not, our goal was never to value your property in the same manner, at the same rate, shall I say, as one of those properties that has been totally gutted out. Those properties are in a different category than yours.
Although someone, if that particular person decided at that moment, because the market is rising, if they did decide to sell, they might very well capture or be offered an offering price, a sale price, significantly higher than what they even think their property might be worth at that moment, because, as you mentioned, the neighborhood has become hot, as they say, and so we have limited amount of supply and increasing demand.
That's right.
That does, in fact, drive up price.
That drives up price, and that example is one of the key components as to why neighborhoods take off and why real property values may increase.
As the finance director mentioned, I recall in my previous position in Philadelphia City Council, there was a significant increase in assessments, unfortunately, again, under a broken system. But I recall back in 2002, there were pretty significant increases in a variety of places across the city. And that event seemed to really focus a significant amount of attention on the fact that the system was broken and actions needed to take place. So over about the last decade, we've really, in a variety of ways and different pieces of legislation, been focused in this regard. But the last couple of years, with the ballot question, with the overwhelming voter approval, numerous newspaper stories, et cetera, we have been working on this now for a couple of years. How have we been getting information out? And obviously, with notices going out just last month, about mid-February, there's been an intense amount of focus on this particular issue, and just about everybody, I think, has by now heard of AVI. May not completely understand it, but has at least heard of it. What are we doing to get information out, and what are some of the different ways we have and are looking forward to communicating with property owners?
Well, there's several ways that we have gotten information out. One of the first ways that we have gotten information out is when you get your assessment notice, you get a pamphlet. As you see here.
Also known as a brochure.
A brochure. As you see here, that describes exactly what AVI is, some of the components of it, and things that you should know about AVI in general. But in addition to that, we've been doing countless community events out in particular neighborhoods, meeting with citizens, meeting with civic associations. And we've done that, I would go so far as to say, since October. Mm-hmm. And we continue to do those as well as...
and in those sessions, just kind of generally talking about what AVI is, and obviously people did not at that point, didn't have a new assessment notice, but we're talking about a system, and I'm certainly familiar that both Anna Wallace-Adams and Marissa Waxman and many others have been participating in those sessions. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the pre-work to really create the environment for the reality of AVI, which is now here in front of us, because everyone now has, pretty much everyone has their notice now. So tell me about those sessions.
Well, those sessions, which started actually probably in the summer, talking first about the homestead exemption, we made sure that we were getting out and presenting with folks from the OPA, telling people about what is AVI, what it'll mean for them, and how they can make sure that as a homeowner they can take advantage of the homestead exemption. And to make sure that folks knew about those sessions and got there, we've been doing regular email blasts to over 300 community organizations. We also have been briefing the folks that people turn to in their communities to ask questions about this. So they're faith-based leaders, realtors, housing counselors. We wanted to make sure that people ask questions to had all of the information. And we've done some direct mailing. So even before the assessment notices went out, in September we sent nearly 500,000 homestead brochures and applications to folks who were eligible for that program.
We've also been really careful of making sure that we've been putting everything online, and we have translated all of our documents into multiple languages and put them on the website. And the other thing that, bearing in mind a lot of people don't have internet access, we set up a call center that allowed people to apply for the homestead over the phone. So the number that's on the brochure that people got, the 215-686-9200, allows people to call up and actually complete the homestead application over the phone, as well as ask questions about what's going on with AVI. We've also created some videos that we thought would help, and we've translated them into Spanish too. One which is just explaining how the assessment process worked and how to read your assessment notice, as well as how to file the first level review, which Richie mentioned before. And we put those on our website, we put them on YouTube, and we've also put them on Comcast On Demand. So if people don't have internet access, they can go onto Comcast On Demand and find those videos.
We've also printed these materials and the brochures. They're available at our rec centers and libraries, and probably other public facilities. So, I mean, again, our goal is to get information out as broadly and as widely as possible using a variety of different means and mechanisms. Tell me about, let's talk a little more about our efforts going forward. Obviously, we're having this particular session, it's PhillyStat, it's on the Government Access Channel 64. Naturally, we can replay this from time to time, this particular session. The hotline, what was that number again?
215-686-9200.
Okay, and for internet access?
You can go to the phila.gov homepage, the www.phila.gov, and you can also go to phila.gov/OPA. All of those have the information.
So, as a result of the original sessions, again, when we started focusing last year on homestead exemption, and as Marissa and Anna have mentioned, going back to the summer in these sessions, but honestly, it was a result of the success of many of those sessions, and that people were wanting more and more information. That I thought, in a post, assessment notice being mailed out environment, that we really should capitalize on the great work that had already been done. Now we have not only the theory of AVI, but the reality of AVI, because folks have received a notice in the mail, and that with first level review and the deadline coming up at the end of March, that we should really utilize this month and intensely have a number of folks out in communities who could talk with people, share information. But I want to commend both Marissa and Anna and all the folks involved. Those early on sessions, I think, really set the ground and created an environment where people were ready, but now have received a notice and, kind of, what is this? What is this all about? We've gone from theory to reality, but Marissa and Anna, congratulations on putting those sessions together. And now let's talk about where we are at the moment. We're about to start having drop-in sessions and outreach in the community. So tell us, what is that all about?
Well, we're going to be having drop-in sessions where folks are able to come and meet with a knowledgeable city employee one-on-one to ask questions about their assessment notice, about how to apply for the homestead, about how to request a first-level review if they have questions or concerns about their notice and the property value assigned to their property. They'll also be able to talk to folks with information about Department of Revenue programs for tax relief, because that's sort of the second piece of this. First is the getting the values right, but there will also be that secondary piece about what does this mean for me and my bill. So in one place, we wanted to make sure we had all the resources necessary in people's neighborhoods to provide that information one-on-one, face-to-face.
So wait a minute, you're going to actually... That means to me that you want to tell people that there's ways to save on what you just sent, to save money. Is that correct?
Well, we want to help them find ways to make the payments toward the real estate taxes. So when we're out there in the community, we want to make sure that people know about the hardship agreements that are available. We want to make sure the seniors know about the senior citizens tax freeze. Again, that's a program that's based on income. A single person is up to $23,500, and a couple that is married over 65, again, is $31,500. We also want to let them know that there are situations for low income, again, senior payment plans as well. That goes in your real estate bill every year, but we want to make sure we have the information readily available to them. And what we can plan on doing also, we've already started with the 2014 application that's been prepared, and we also have that in Spanish. So for folks who are really concerned, they can look forward to doing it for next year's taxes that come out in 2014.
And as far as saving money, the homestead exemption really is the easiest way for homeowners to save money on their tax bills going forward.
What does that mean, homestead exemption?
So the homestead exemption is a new tax relief program that's been rolled out that for folks who apply and are approved, and it's the simplest program and application ever, will see a reduction in the taxable value of their home. There's the total market value, what we think it's worth, but the proportion that they have to apply the tax rate to and apply and pay on will be lower. Right now it's set at $30,000. That could always change. And it's for homeowners who own their home and live in it. And that's all you need to do to be eligible. It doesn't matter how long you've lived there, what your income is, whether or not you have a mortgage, whether or not you even owe back taxes to the city. It's a 4-question, simple application. And we've been able to approve 182,000 homeowners so far, but we know there's a lot more folks out there. So we want to make sure that folks know about the program and get themselves into it by July 31st, 2013. So there's still a lot more time for folks to get into it, but they shouldn't wait.
And then the February 15th mailing was a homestead application.
Not actually the application in the February 15th mailing, but we let folks know whether or not they were approved and how they could enroll. And they can enroll over the phone in any language they want. They can apply online, and also at these drop-in centers, we'll have the paper applications. People can fill them out there, give them to an OPA representative, and we'll get them processed.
Right. I'm thinking about the mailing we did last year.
Yes, that was sent
had the
out.
homestead exemption in the envelope.
Yeah, pre-printed with everyone's account information to make it super easy to fill out.
And again, I mean, it really is questions. I mean, you have to put your name on it. Do you own the home? Is it your primary residence? Literally, I think there are 2 other boxes. Sign it, date it, send it in. It is clearly the simplest, easiest to fill out government application for anything ever created. And as was mentioned, our challenge, I think a part of our challenge at the moment is, I mean, we think that there are probably 300,000 or so folks eligible. But only so far 180,000 have actually signed up. We want people to sign up, and please fill out this application. Again, are they available in hard copy?
They'll be available in hard copy in English, Spanish, and Chinese. And then if you want to apply in other languages, that you can do over the phone.
Right.
Right. And some of the neighborhoods, I think, where people aren't applying are those neighborhoods where people could most benefit from them, it seems like. So some of the poorer neighborhoods in the city, sort of even more outreach, I think, to make sure that folks in those neighborhoods are applying.
We've been doing community ads in community newspapers recently to make sure that folks are aware of this and know where to get the information. So, the Northeast Times or Al Deer or the West Side Weekly and all of those, we made sure that we're running advertisements for the folks who maybe, they don't get their news online, but they still go to that hard copy paper in their neighborhood.
There are some people who didn't get accepted for homestead, but it might be for a reason like they didn't sign it. And there's a reason code that people got when they got the notification they didn't get homestead. They should reapply if they think they're still eligible and all it was something that they didn't sign.
Exactly. And again, the deadline for applying for homestead exemption, July 31st. So, as Marissa said, there is time, but don't wait. I mean, again, just, take this application takes less than 5 minutes to fill out. Fill it out, drop it in the mail, and you'll get notified. Eva, tell us a little bit about what you anticipate in terms of helping to get a higher proportion of folks who are eligible to actually apply and then get approved.
Well, we're one of several agencies that are participating, but our staff have gone to training. They're used to working with people in low-income communities in terms of getting assistance with rental rebates, other kinds of property tax relief. So our staff and staff from agencies funded by the Office of Housing, Philly Rising, and a variety of other agencies have been to training on these programs, specifically to help staff the 20 drop-in centers that we're planning for the rest of this month. So it's a very intense schedule. We're hoping a lot of people will come out, but I think there's also another benefit that now that our staff are trained, they'll be able to provide this same level of assistance in their daily work because they're working every day with people who are coming to our agency or other city agencies with other needs, but we can then say, by the way, have you filled out your homestead application?
And I think, and I don't know, obviously, why so many people so far have not yet applied. And again, we're going to do everything we can to drive those numbers up. But I worry at times whenever people hear about taxes, property, value, is this a bad thing? Is something, going to happen that I'm not going to be happy with? And all we can say is there is no reason not to apply for the homestead exemption. And certainly I can speak from personal experience. I filled mine out and was approved. I got my notice, and I'd really just like to kind of walk through the new assessment notice. If you could explain some of the elements to me. It has changed from previous years, so we want to make sure that folks know what it's about and what's going on. It's not particularly complicated, but it's in a different format, and so I have my notes. And
to remind people coming to the drop-in centers to bring their notice.
Yes,
that's very important.
Yes, and on the calls that we've been making. So, full page, and so it basically is a little bit of a history. It's telling me what it was now, or the actual 2013, and the proposed 2014. Has obviously our address, OPA account number, which is particular to, I guess, that parcel.
Specific, that's right.
February 15th date when it went out, owners' names, myself and my wife Lisa. So it says that my proposed 2014 property market value is $223,500, but my 2013 value was $103,900. So does that automatically mean that my taxes are going to go up?
No. What has to happen, first of all, in comparing your 13 to your 14 is done at 100% of market value, and your 2013 was done with the common level ratio. But a tax rate has to be decided upon, along with any type of relief measures. And based on that, your taxes might not go up. Your taxes could possibly go down.
The tax rate that you talked about is a rate that would put the same amount of revenue in next year as in this year.
Right.
So some people will see their taxes go up and some go down, but that may be, you may have a large increase in your assessment in tax.
Right. And so why is that? What causes things like that to happen? We know, unfortunately, in the old system, the broken system, that many property owners were in a situation where they were actually paying more than they should, and some were paying less than they should because, again, their property assessment was incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, we had to get the assessments correct. We had to get the assessments more equalized. We had to get them closer to market value. Once we got that situated, I think things were put in place or proposed to be put in place that would possibly affect people's tax bills. But we had a system that was severely broken where someone could have an assessment that was egregiously wrong. It could have been too high to begin with, and it could have been something that was not equitable with everything else in the particular neighborhood.
Let me go back to the notice here. So in big letters, it tells me what my new 2014 value is. The next is, as I mentioned, I did apply for a homestead exemption, and it says right on the form, yes, which is what you want, which means that I've been approved.
That's right.
Okay. We want to really encourage folks when they get this to also check it for accuracy.
That's right.
Right? That your name is right, your address is right, but then there's a property characteristics. So mine says single family, detached with a garage, 2.5 stories.
That's right.
That's my property.
That's right.
That is absolutely correct. Then there's a comparison between the two. A lot of writing down the bottom, explaining a few things. But one of the most important, and maybe in the future, we'll put this down the bottom in the bigger letters. This is not a bill.
That's right.
This is not a bill.
That's right.
I think we want to do like 14-point lettering here down the bottom. So this is just a notice.
Right. A lot of people get mixed up the fact that an assessment notice versus a property tax bill, and they'll talk to you as though it was their property tax bill, and they'll talk to the actual assessor about how much in taxes and that sort of thing. The assessor is literally just letting you know what your property is worth based on our analysis and the data and things that we look at.
And the assessor actually has nothing to do with what your tax bill is.
The assessor has nothing at all to do with what your tax bill might wind up being. The assessor is only to get to values right, get them fair and equitable, and get them closer to market value.
So if I'm going to come out to see you at my first level review, and I want to talk to you about my tax bill, I'm too early.
Exactly, because
you might want to
I might want to talk to the revenue department. Okay.
For current.
For current, yeah.
Tax rate has
One of the things to emphasize with Richie and OPA demos, they should not think about taxes at all. Their job is to get the values right.
And the value is, I mean, in the purest sense, the value of a property is generally what one person is willing to pay another person.
That's right.
In a complete arm's length transaction that they, don't really know each other, generally, not family members. And what will that property sell for in the open marketplace? So if the two of you were going after the same property, you might value it one way. You might, if you were trying to buy it, you might be willing to pay one price. You might be willing to pay another price. The owner may be offering it for something else.
That's right.
At some point in time, someone possibly reaches an agreement, and that's what it's sold for.
That's right.
But even in that situation, especially if it's competitive or a hot market or something, all that sometimes does is really drive up the value, which can possibly skew to some extent what's really going on in that neighborhood. Is that possible?
And that's what I was sort of alluding to when I said your property doesn't necessarily have to have been gutted out or fixed up. A lot of people had a misconception that I haven't done anything with my property in years. Why did my value go up? Or my value should never really change. Well, activity in neighborhoods for even the most simple properties that have never been touched can drive those properties up. And so now what you have is a new baseline, what we call a new base property versus properties that have been severely fixed up or properties that have been gutted out.
So when I come to the drop-in session, I need to bring my new assessment notice. Is there anything else that I should bring? Are there other,
I would recommend that you bring your packet. I would recommend that you bring your assessment notice. And after we discuss that with you, if you want some discussion on your first level review form, how you should fill that out and things of that nature, you should bring that also. And then,
so you can fill out a first level review form at the drop-in sessions that we're having all across the city?
We would recommend that you bring, we would recommend that you bring it because we can walk you through it and tell you exactly how you should fill it out, not tell you what to put in it, but we can tell you how to fill it out.
We do want folks to bring the one that they got in their envelope,
right,
because those have been pre-populated with their information and barcoded, which means speedier processing, and they'll get an answer sooner.
Right, but you won't get an answer there.
No, you won't get an answer there.
Right.
And
we have to take it back to the shop and take a look at it.
Right, we have to take it and process it. And we know a lot of people are already satisfied with their assessments, and so they just might want to know information about the form in general.
I heard that you've gotten already about 6,000 of these requests.
Yes.
Is that 6,000 out of how many did you send out?
Well, we sent out one for every parcel. So we've gotten 6,000 as of last Friday for all 579 for all the parcels done.
579,000.
About 1% of their
so far.
But it's early.
But it's early.
It's very early, and we're promoting.
Right. I mean, people.
First level review is actually new.
Yes.
To the city. I mean, it's something you created as part of this process, and people obviously still have the ability to more formally appeal.
Right.
By the first Monday in October.
That's right.
This year in front of the Board of Revision of Taxes. But we wanted to create something that was a little less strenuous, a little more informal, and early on, again, as an information base. What's going on with my property? Is this, correct? And if it's not, then we have to address that.
We wanted a non-confrontational way of talking with the taxpayer to get them to understand exactly what went on, how their property was assessed, what things were considered, and exchange information to make sure that we have everything as accurate as possible.
And if I do a first level review and I have an appointment at the OPA, how do I know that the person I'm talking to actually knows my block and knows my houses and what insurances will I have?
Right, you can talk directly to the evaluator.
Who did
Eventually, once you call in, we have the calls going so we can make sure we monitor everything through a vendor. But you can, when you get to a point, talk to the actual evaluator if you feel as though you want to go on with the process. First thing we want people to understand is after you review your notice and take time out to analyze whether or not you really want to file a first level review, because realistically, you may be fine with your value. You look at things throughout the neighborhood, do a little analysis on your own, you may actually be fine with your value. When you get to the point where you think you actually want to file and you want to know more, then we advise you to get to your value.
So how do you fill out this first level review form? Is this complicated?
Not at all. We have one on the screen here. This is a first level review form, and the top portion, as you can see, the first thing you want to do is something very similar as you do with your assessment notice. We have pre-barcoded everything, so a lot of this is pre-loaded up into your form if you use the one that we sent you. So check the information for the ownership, the property address. We want you to provide, if you will, a phone number, because if we need to get back in touch with you to set up an appointment, want to be able to reach you. Email address is always fine. This is basic information that is already preloaded for you. The second section is the reason why you are actually filing a first level review. We have 3 distinct boxes: marketability, equity, whether the property has been done in an equitable manner, or whether an abatement or an exemption is accurate or not. You can either check one box, you can check 2 boxes, or you can check all 3 if in fact they apply to you. Under that, we have additional description where we just ask you to just write us something very briefly about why you feel as though your property is valued either too high or too low. You can give us a brief statement. You can say see attached. You can do your own analysis. It may be bigger than what we have provided for you. You can attach that and say see attached, send it in to us. The next section is your estimate of what your property is worth, and we have it broken down into the 3 distinct categories, being land and improvements and a total value. Now, we know that a lot of people will not necessarily know what their property is worth in each of those categories. But we do, we would like for you to give us some ideas to what you think your total market value should be. And so you don't have to check, you don't have to fill in the land, or you don't have to fill in the improvements, but if you could fill in the total, it helps us get an idea as to how far you think we are away.
Suppose a property owner, for whatever reason, maybe they were recently trying to refinance, or they were borrowing against their property, whatever the case may be, and maybe they had an appraisal done within the last 6 to 12 months. Is that of value to you?
That's a distinct value to us. What you would do in that instance is you would write the total value, what the appraisal came up to, and you would put see attached and just send us a copy. The last section here is your signature. We want to make sure that we are actually getting the first level review from the person who owns the property. We don't want any, we don't want any any preponderance of anything happening where someone is filing a first level review on someone else's property and unbeknownst to them. And so the next section is for if you have a representative representing you, we want that representative to actually sign and state what company they're working with and give a phone number, et cetera, et cetera.
So what would your representative be? For an example.
Sure. We have tax representatives who, lawyers, et cetera, who represent other people to file reviews on their property and give explanations. And it's sort of more like an expert for a person who's not as knowledgeable about property values. And so we want them to be able to sign, and we want to see that you are in agreement with them. So we have also, in addition to this, a form for the representative to sign stating that you are right with them representing the property.
Let's talk a little bit about the homestead exemption form. Do we have a copy of that? Why don't you, we can walk through how to fill that out.
So the homestead exemption, the top portion, like a lot of what we have, has basically your contact information. Your name is the owner, the property location, the account number, which we're now calling the OPA account number, but folks may remember that as their old BRT number.
Right.
It should be the same number, so you can always find that, on your old tax bills and other places. Or if you've got the one we mailed out to you, it was all pre-filled in. And again, we ask for a mailing address in case it's different from your property address. When it comes to the homestead and those are owner occupants, it's usually just the property address, but a lot of our seniors and other folks may have their bills sent somewhere else. And so please provide us with that information. We want phone and email in case there's any problem with your application. We want to be able to reach back to you. And then we come to the 4 questions. And the first is this property your primary residence? Check yes, check no. For the most part, folks know this is pretty clear, but if you have some questions, it's usually where are you registered, where are your kids enrolled in school, what address do you put on your federal income taxes? That's your primary residence. And then to double check your answer on that, the next question is there anywhere else that you claim as your primary residence? Check yes, check no. Folks may have a second property elsewhere in the city, maybe in a different state, New Jersey or Florida, which also offer homestead exemptions. And you can only have one homestead exemption, whether it's in the city or anywhere in the country. So we check and we say, is there anywhere else you're claiming as your residence?
Generally, you can only have one primary residence.
Right. So that's just us double checking. Now, the next question asks if you're in a cooperative building. And co-ops are sort of similar to condominiums because they're multifamily, but they're different because they only have a single account and the folks in there are shareholders. There's only about a dozen of those buildings in the city of Philadelphia. So if you're not sure whether or not you live in a co-op, you probably don't. And so for that question, you'd say no. And then the last question is there anything else going on in this property other than your primary residence? Do you maybe have a rental unit? Is there a commercial activity going on? And check yes or check no. And if you are in a mixed-use property with a couple of activities going on, you're still eligible for the homestead exemption, but only for the proportion of the property that is your primary residence. Right. So if you've checked yes, we ask you what % of the property is being used for something else. After that, all you need to do is sign and date. If you've got the paper one, please just send it into the P.O. box listed at the bottom. Or if you're doing this over the phone, they'll just ask you the questions.
This is, at the moment, one of the main proposals for relief as we move through this process and make the transition. Obviously, there are others, and they've been touched on earlier by Revenue Commissioner Richardson and Finance Director DeVoe. But why don't we spend a few moments on each of them, kind of explaining what we already have. Clearly, again, through the outreach program and a number of other efforts, we're trying to better promote the relief and the support programs that we have. And I would be the first to say that, generally on just about anything, we could always do a better job. But I think at this moment, we really do have to emphasize that we have about a half a dozen different programs and services that can help folks currently. Again, you have a notice, you don't yet have a bill. So the 2014 taxes from this assessment notice won't be due until either February of 14 to get the 1% discount end of the month, or everyone is due by the end of March, just like we're in the 2013 tax season right now. So let's talk a little bit about a little bit of detail as we start to wrap up. What are our current tax relief programs? How can we help folks right now who may be experiencing some level of distress before we even get to talk about the AVI program?
Well, as you said, we have about a half dozen programs currently. In addition to the homestead exemption, we also have a payment agreement program. And we have standard payment agreements for anyone, regardless of income. Taxpayer can come in, and if they're having difficulty paying their taxes, they come into the Department of Revenue or speak to a representative over the phone at 215-686-6442 and tell us basically what they can afford to pay. And we'll get them into a payment agreement that they can afford. If they're low income, we have what we term as a hardship agreement. In that case, we go into a little bit more detail on the income, in which case we don't only look at their gross income, but we actually get into their expenses. We'll look at what they have to pay their bills with and then what they have left at the end of the day. And at that point, we'll set up a payment agreement based on what they can afford. And they can be as little as $25 a month. If that's all that a taxpayer has to pay, then we'll accept that.
But at least they're in an agreement and they are paying. And in that situation, as I understand it, as long as you stay current, then there are no additional or extraordinary debt collection efforts that are taking place because you are in an agreement and you're paying what you can pay. I mean, the reality is that if I have X amount of income minus Y expenses, then this is what I have left. And I mean, that's it.
That's right.
Just,
and you're considered compliant.
Most folks are not printing money in the basement. So, I mean, it's just you have what you have. But, I mean, again, at least you're under an agreement and you're paying, what you can.
Right. And no one, there's no enforcement action taking place. In addition to that, we have something, the senior citizen low income special tax provision. And that's a lot of words for what we call the tax freeze. And that means that taxpayers, single taxpayers with income $23,500 or less, or married taxpayers with gross income of $31,500 or less, can get their taxes frozen at the current level. So their taxes won't go up. They're frozen where they are now. As long as they stay within those income guidelines, they'll be frozen. And it's no type of a deferral or anything. They don't have to pay those taxes at a later date. They're simply frozen at that rate, and they'll stay that way. So that's a very popular program. The due date for that is October 15th of this year. So that the application's a very straightforward application. It's on our website.
If a senior came to a drop-in opportunity during the course of March, will there be forms there? Can they talk to someone? My great concern on all of these programs, which are very, very important, is that, again, there's a difference between the number of people who are eligible versus the number of folks who actually sign up. Now, again, we always have to do an extraordinary job making sure that we're getting that information out there. But also, how do we get people to literally sign up for things that will be a benefit to them? And clearly, I'm sure that there are many, many seniors who are eligible for the senior citizen freeze who have not yet signed up. So if they come to a session somewhere in their neighborhood or wherever they go to, will they be able to get more information and possibly either sign up or start the process?
They will. The resource people that will be there have been trained and they're familiar with the program and the guidelines, so they'll be there to inform the taxpayers of the programs and help them determine whether they're eligible. Once it's determined that they're eligible and they need some further guidance, Revenue Department staff will be on site to assist them with that process. The forms will be there, and so they'll be able to help them. Okay. In addition, we have a low-income senior citizen installment plan. That is for low-income taxpayers and low-income senior citizen taxpayers.
What's the definition of low income?
Low income depends on household size. For one member of the household, it's $37,422. That extends all the way up to a household of 10 for $57,232. The applications for this program are included with the tax bills when they go out each year. So we'll be sure that everybody gets that application when they receive their bill. But if they're interested now, the applications will be at the drop-in sites. And what this program does, it allows the taxpayer to pay their taxes over equal installments over the course of the year. So basically a monthly payment. So similar to what they would be paying on a car payment or whatever they're familiar with. They get a bill from the city each month. Because what we found is some taxpayers, their problem isn't really being able to afford the taxes. It's being able to come up with the total amount of tax due by the March 31st deadline. Right. So this gives them the ability to pay it out over the course of the year.
Right. And even manage their money, manage their resources over the course of that time, as opposed to the big lump sum payment in February or March.
Correct. In addition to that, we have a tax credit for active duty reserve and National Guard members. This is an actual credit. So unlike other pieces of the program that either freeze or give you a payout plan, this actually reduces the amount of real estate taxes that you would pay. Now, to be eligible, a taxpayer has to have been in active duty, could be reserve or active duty time, but it has to be outside of the state of Pennsylvania. And it doesn't have to be for the full year. It can be for any portion of the year. And what happens is, for the portion of the year that they are on active duty time outside the state, they'll get a pro rata deduction or credit for the real estate taxes due.
How do we promote that?
We have We do have it on the website, and we do put the information out there. The department has met with veterans organizations and city council members to help with the promoting of this out there. We still feel that it's probably underutilized, so we'd really like to get the word out there and see taxpayers use this credit. And that's basically the credits or the programs that are in place now.
I'm showing one disabled veteran exemption.
Disabled Veterans Exemption is a program that is actually administered by the state of Pennsylvania. So it's not through the Department of Revenue, Philadelphia Department of Revenue, but a brief outline of that I'm sorry.
You could point someone in the right direction on that?
Yes, yes. We'll have information of how to apply for that program. And just generally, that's for any service-connected total disability. The state exempts those individuals from real estate taxes in the state of Pennsylvania, including Philadelphia.
Let me try to bring us to a conclusion, and then we'll have a little bit of a wrap-up conversation. So, by sheer coincidence, earlier today, I signed an executive order creating the Office of Immigrant and Multicultural Affairs for the city of Philadelphia. Of course, again, increasingly, not only is our population growing, but we're seeing increased immigrant population. English, for some, is not necessarily first language. So let's talk about our efforts to make sure that we're reaching out in a variety of different ways to as many of our citizens as possible, especially those who, again, English may not be a first language or may not speak English at all, but still utilize native language. How are we outreaching to those constituencies?
So we have translated the AVI, but actually brought some of them with me, but I can give them to you afterwards. Translated the brochures as well as the document that came with it, with about when the taxes go, into a few different languages: Vietnamese, Khmer, Russian, Spanish, French, Chinese, Vietnamese. I think there's a few other languages that we've made them available on the website, and then we'll bring them with us to the drop-in centres.
Right.
We've also translated some of the forms into Spanish and Chinese, and we can, if you call the hotline, you can get you can fill out any of the forms over the phone and speak to a representative about.
And soon we'll have the.
Sorry? Oh, that's right. We've also got the videos. I think I mentioned at the beginning, those two videos that we've developed about how to read your assessment notice, as well as how to file the first level review. We've also translated those into Spanish.
Right. And soon, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we will have the Welsh translation.
Well, not sure about that, but actually one of the other things that I should have mentioned before is we also have the AVI calculator that that OIT has put on the website, and they have translated that into multiple languages too. And the calculator, if you go to avicalculator.phila.gov, you can type in your address and it'll show your assessment information, and you can also play around and put in a different tax rate, and it'll give you what that amount of tax would be based on that scenario.
I think you can put the homestead exemption in as well.
It actually will already say whether you've already got the homestead exemption on your form, and then you can add the homestead exemption, and then you can play around with the tax. Obviously, this will be done over the summer. The tax rate will be set, and all the relief measures will be set.
Right.
But it'll allow people to have a bit of a sense of that.
Right.
Actually, the other thing I wanted to mention that we hadn't got to earlier is that we have 2 telephone town halls coming up.
Yes.
So for those people who don't want to come to a drop-in or haven't come to a community meeting and would rather just stay at home, we actually have a couple of options for them. On Monday the 11th and Thursday the 27th of March, we have these 2 telephone town halls. And you can call up, and we will actually do a robocall and try and get as many people to join in, where you can ask questions to both Richie and Rob, who will be answering questions and talking about AVI. And they'll also just give a general briefing about what's going on with AVI and the situation. And so we want to encourage as many people to join those as possible. We've got the information. You can pre-register online, or you can call the 686-9200 and register. Or you can just dial in, and we'll be putting all the information about that as well.
And after it's done, we'll be posting the transcripts from those sessions, both in English and Spanish. So folks who miss it will be able to find out what was said as well.
So, a couple key points from today. Significant amount of pre-work done in terms of outreach and information going back from last summer up through the fall, through the winter. Notices went out on February 15th, and now a very comprehensive citywide program put together for drop-in telephone, internet, city's website, telephone town halls in a variety of ways to get information, share information. Two critically important components of all this right now: fill out your homestead exemption if you have not already. 4 questions, sign your name, put a date on it, send it in the mail, or you can do that over the phone. Very easy, very straightforward. The first level review, we're trying to get those done during the course of the month of March. There are 3 distinct reasons as to whether or not you would seek a first level review. There's the market value. I don't think my market value is correct. That's right. Either way. There's non-uniformity as compared to some other similarly situated properties, or the notice does not reflect an abatement or an exemption that may be in place. The one critical component, I think, on first level review is your ability to pay what you think your taxes may be is really not pertinent to the first level review, because the folks who are looking at first level review don't have anything to do with your taxes.
Correct.
These are the assessor or evaluator. There's an issue about ability to pay. I think then you're more over in the world of the Department of Revenue, the programs that we just talked about, or possibly in discussion maybe with the law department about an agreement, if it's, depending on the complications that might go with your particular situation. So it's either my assessment is wrong and you're working with OPA, or I have an ability to pay issue, and that's really more over on the Department of Revenue. But I think the real issue is there's a ton of information. We're going to be out in community. We want people to know what's going on. There's relief available at a number of different levels. We have more people who are eligible than have applied, and we want to make sure that the eligibility versus the universe, the gap, is as low as possible. Please apply for what you're eligible for to provide relief or make it easier on you to actually pay. So are there any other things that we need to cover?
I just had one question. When is the first community meeting? So our first community drop-in sessions start tonight on March 7th. We've got one in the Northeast at 2060 Red Lion Road, and we also have one at the Coleman Library in Chestnut Hill. Both of those are drop-in sessions. Germantown. Green. Okay. Thank you. They're both from 6 to 9. We'll also have one at the Newman Goretti School at 10th and Moore on Saturday from 10 to 5, and then soon we'll be listing the whole rest of those drop-in sessions. We've also got community meetings where we go out and we give presentations and do Q&A. Those are all listed on the OPA website as well at www.philly.gov/OPA. So folks can come to a drop-in, they can come to a community event, and also they can participate in those teletown halls.
And I guess the other thing is that during the budget process, there'll certainly be discussions of other potential relief measures. So that what's available now may not be what's available at the end. We'll continue to provide information.
Sure. Well, and in that regard, I mean, 2 things that have, one is a legislative matter that we're supporting in Harrisburg. We have a number, this goes back to the example of, I've been in my home for 50 years. I have not done extraordinary work. There are things going on around me that I have no ability to control, and the overall values of property have gone up. And we talk about potential for a means-tested gentrification relief. We're seeking, we need legislative authority in Harrisburg to fully implement that kind of program, but we want something like that here in Philadelphia. And then we've also noticed on the commercial side that we have a number of stores that also have dwellings attached to them, more commonly known in Philadelphia as kind of a mixed-use property. They've are experiencing, we've noticed some rather extraordinary increases in some areas, mostly out in neighborhoods, in commercial corridors, in communities, and we're trying to figure out how to address that particular issue as well. Our goal ultimately is to have a low new tax rate that still generates the amount of money in 2014 that we generated in 2013. That's $1.2 billion, split between 56% going to public education, 44% coming to the city. And so how we do that, combined with any relief measures, which of course have a cost attached to them. So the more relief you have, the number, the tax rate has to go up. So finding the proper balance, which for me, I think ultimately is the lowest possible tax rate combined with a decent amount, a good amount of relief measures, and that ultimately results in what the tax rate will be. We don't know what that's going to be now. The budget will get introduced next week. Months of hearings, but hopefully sometime in May, we'll be able to wrap that up. And then the one final piece that everyone is waiting to know is what's the new tax rate. That we'll have an answer to that, and then we go from there. Anything else? Well, thank you very, very much, Jackie. You ran an excellent and efficient meeting, and we appreciate it. So that brings to a conclusion this particular PhillyStat session. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
By now, you've heard a lot about AVI, the Actual Value Initiative, the change to the property assessment system that the City of Philadelphia is implementing. And it's only natural that you're probably wondering what it means to you. To help you understand why the reassessment was necessary, how the new property values were arrived at, and what you need to know about your property, we created this video. First, the why of the AVI. The fact is, Philadelphia's property assessment system has been broken for a long time. Some properties were regularly reassessed and kept up with changes in the market, while other properties may have had no changes for several years. The result was a system that was inaccurate, confusing, and unfair to many Philadelphians. Neighbors with similar properties, for example, might have entirely different assessments, resulting in different tax bills. Or properties that sold for very different prices could pay the same amount in taxes. In 2010, Philadelphia voters took action to fix this broken system by approving the creation of the Office of Property Assessment, a new agency whose job would be to fairly evaluate and assess all properties within the city. Through AVI, Philadelphians will finally have the tax system they deserve, one that is fair, accurate, and understandable. One that ensures that similar properties in similar condition and in similar neighborhoods will have similar assessments that reflect today's market values. Here's how the OPA establishes an assessed value. Evaluators determine a number of facts about a property. These include the size of the property, its age and condition, its location, and whether it's used as a home or business. To make sure these facts are accurate and up-to-date, OPA's evaluators conduct field inspections, get information, such as deeds and permits, check commercial sources, such as property listings, and even look at aerial photos of the city. To set the value for residential properties, such as single-family homes, evaluators analyze recent sales of similar properties, being sure to take differences in property characteristics into account. For commercial properties and large multifamily properties, such as apartment houses, evaluators examine factors like income and operating expenses, or the cost of land and construction. Once OPA has all the information we just described, evaluators can set the assessed value for a property, being careful to compare any given property only with others that are similar. Now let's look at your assessment notice. If you don't have it handy, you might want to pause here to get it so you can refer to it. As you can see, the notice lists the address of the property, the names of the owner or owners, the owner's mailing address, your OPA account number, which should be the same as your old BRT number, and most important, your proposed 2014 property market value. Please keep in mind that this is not your tax bill. That will be determined by the new tax rates that the Mayor and City Council will set this spring. Your notice will show whether or not you received a homestead exemption and some of the property characteristics used to arrive at your assessment. The notice also features a comparison with last year's numbers including the total market value. Here you'll see the ratio used to calculate tax bills. A key benefit of the new system is that this has been greatly simplified. Before AVI, taxpayers had to multiply their property's market value by 32% and again by the tax rate to figure out their tax bill. But starting in 2014, you'll only have to multiply the market value by the new tax rate. Please do not use the old rate with your new value to calculate taxes. Whatever number you get, it will be wrong and way too high, as the tax rate will be set in the spring and will be much lower. Your assessed value. Starting in 2014, your assessed value and your market value will be the same. And finally, exemptions and abatements. This shows if any or all of the value of your property is non-taxable because of a 10-year exemption, nonprofit status, or other reason. Remember, the homestead exemption is listed separately above. We hope that this video has helped you understand not just your new assessment, but why this new system was so necessary. We realize that any change isn't always easy, but this is one that was long overdue. And waiting longer for change would only have made an unfair and confusing system even worse. If you have any questions or need more information about your new assessment, please feel free to call us at 215-686-9200 or visit the website you see on the screen. Like many other Philadelphians, you recently received or will receive your 2014 Property Assessment Notice from the OPA, the Office of Property Assessment. During the past year, almost 600,000 properties in Philadelphia, residential, commercial, and industrial, were evaluated to reflect their current fair market value as compared with similar properties in the city. Your notice shows the estimated actual market value of your property for the 2014 tax year as determined by OPA assessment professionals. You'll find this number toward the top of your notice, just below your name and address. The value is an estimate of what the property would sell for today. If you think that this new value is incorrect, you can appeal your assessment, and you'll be glad to know that the city has made the appeal process much easier than it has been in the past. For the first time, OPA will offer a first-level review. An evaluator will reconsider your value based on the information you provide without the need for an in-person hearing. You simply fill out the first-level review form that came with your notice and be sure to mail it in no later than March 31st, 2013. If you need a new form, you can download one at this website. But before you do anything, you should be sure that you have a valid reason to appeal. There are 3 valid reasons for appeal. 1. Incorrect market value. If you believe the market value is substantially higher or lower than what you think the property would sell for. 2. Non-uniformity. If you believe the assessed value is out of line from other properties that are otherwise similar to yours. And 3. An incorrect abatement or exemption. If you believe that the portion of the value that is listed as taxable is incorrect. If you think that any of these reasons apply, you will have to support your claim. Remember, you are challenging whether the value assigned to the property is correct, not the amount of taxes you will pay. You will need to provide your own estimate of the correct assessed value, and you can include additional evidence, such as property appraisals and photos of your property, that back up your argument for revising the property value. If you're a commercial property owner, you will also need to provide income and expense information. Templates for those are available on the OPA website. After all first-level review requests have been filed, the OPA will review each one. This process will continue through the spring and early summer. As part of your review, we may ask to speak to you by phone or in person and to inspect your property. When the review is complete, OPA may increase the value of the property, decrease it, or leave it unchanged, and will notify you of the decision. If you disagree with the decision, you can file a formal second-level appeal to the Board of Revision of Taxes. Formal appeals are due by the first Monday in October. If you are not satisfied with the outcome of this second-level appeal, you can then take your case to a third and final level by filing an appeal with the Court of Common Pleas. Remember, you are appealing your new property value, not your new taxes. Your 2014 tax bill will be based on the new tax rate to be determined by the Mayor and City Council by May 31st of this year in the budget process. If you have any questions about the first level review or need copies of the forms to file, please feel free to call us at 215-686-9200 or visit the website you see on the screen.
En este momento ya estará bastante informado sobre AVI, la iniciativa del valor real, el cambio en el sistema de evaluación de propiedades que está implementando la ciudad de Filadelfia. Y naturalmente se estará preguntando lo que esto significa para usted. Creamos este video para ayudarle a comprender por qué fue necesario hacer la revisión, cómo fueron calculadas las nuevas valuaciones de las propiedades y lo que usted necesita saber acerca de su propiedad. Primero, ¿por qué AVI? De hecho, el sistema de evaluación de las propiedades en Filadelfia no ha funcionado correctamente desde hace mucho tiempo. Mientras que algunas propiedades fueron revaluadas de manera regular y su valor se mantuvo a la par con los cambios en el mercado, la evaluación de otras propiedades no ha cambiado en varios años. Esto resultó en un sistema inexacto, confuso e injusto para muchos filadelfianos. Por ejemplo, vecinos con propiedades similares podrían haber recibido valuaciones completamente diferentes, resultando en cuotas tributarias diferentes. O propiedades con diferentes valores de venta podrían haber pagado el mismo monto en concepto de impuestos. En el 2010, los ciudadanos de Filadelfia votaron para reparar este sistema defectuoso y aprobaron la creación de la Oficina de Evaluación de Propiedades, una nueva agencia cuya tarea sería la evaluación y valuación justa de todas las propiedades dentro de la ciudad. A través de AVI, los ciudadanos de Filadelfia por fin tendrán el sistema impositivo que se merecen, un sistema justo, exacto y comprensible. Un sistema que garantiza que propiedades similares, en condiciones similares y vecindarios similares reciban valuaciones similares que reflejan el valor de mercado actual. La OPA determina el valor de tasación de la siguiente manera. Los evaluadores constatan una serie de datos sobre una propiedad. Estos incluyen el tamaño de la propiedad, su antigüedad y condición, la ubicación y si su uso es residencial o comercial. Para asegurar que estos datos son exactos y actualizados, los evaluadores de la OPA llevan a cabo inspecciones de campo, obtienen información, como títulos de propiedad y permisos, verifican fuentes de información comercial como listados de propiedades y hasta estudian fotografías aéreas acerca de la ciudad. Para establecer el valor de propiedades residenciales como viviendas de una sola familia, los evaluadores analizan ventas recientes de propiedades similares, asegurándose de tomar en cuenta las diferentes características de las propiedades. En el caso de propiedades de uso comercial y grandes propiedades para múltiples familias, como edificios de departamentos, los evaluadores analizan factores tales como los costos de funcionamiento, el ingreso generado o el costo del terreno y la construcción. Una vez que la OPA recaba la información que acabamos de describir, los evaluadores pueden determinar el valor de tasación de una propiedad, cuidando de comparar cualquier propiedad determinada con otras propiedades similares solamente. Examinemos ahora su notificación de evaluación. Si no la tiene a mano, le recomendamos que haga una pausa y la busque para que pueda usarla como referencia. Como verá, la notificación incluye la dirección de la propiedad, el nombre del propietario o los propietarios, la dirección postal del propietario, su número de cuenta del OPA, que debería ser idéntico a su antiguo número de BRT, y lo más importante, el valor de mercado de su propiedad propuesto para el 2014. Tenga en cuenta que esta no es su cuota tributaria, la cual será establecida por las nuevas tasas impositivas que determinarán el alcalde y el ayuntamiento esta primavera. Su notificación indicará si usted ha recibido una exención fiscal para viviendas familiares y algunas de las características de la propiedad que fueron consideradas para determinar su valuación. La notificación incluye también una comparación con la valuación del año pasado, indicando el valor total de mercado, el valor del terreno y el valor de las mejoras introducidas. Aquí verá el porcentaje usado para calcular la cuota tributaria. Un beneficio clave del nuevo sistema es que ha sido simplificado en gran medida. Antes de AVI, los contribuyentes tenían que multiplicar el valor de mercado de su propiedad por 32% y luego nuevamente por la tasa impositiva para determinar su cuota tributaria. Pero a partir del 2014, usted solo tendrá que multiplicar el valor de mercado por la nueva tasa impositiva. No utilice la antigua tasa con su nueva evaluación para calcular los impuestos. La cifra que resulte será incorrecta y demasiado alta, puesto que la tasa impositiva será establecida en la primavera y será mucho más baja. Su valor de tasación. A partir del 2014, el valor de tasación y el valor de mercado serán iguales. Por último, las exenciones y desgravaciones. Esto indica si parte del valor o el valor completo de su propiedad está exenta de impuestos debido a una exención de 10 años, calidad de entidad sin fines de lucro u otra razón. Tenga presente que la exención fiscal para viviendas familiares está listada por separado. Esperamos que este video le haya ayudado a comprender no solo su nueva evaluación, sino también el motivo por el cual este nuevo sistema era tan necesario. Sabemos que los cambios no son siempre fáciles, pero este era uno largamente demorado. Esperar más tiempo para efectuar el cambio hubiera empeorado aún más un sistema injusto y confuso. Si tiene preguntas o necesita más información sobre su nueva evaluación, llámenos al 215-686-9200 o visite la página web que ve en la pantalla. Como muchos otros filadelfianos, usted ya ha recibido o recibirá su notificación de evaluación de propiedades para el 2013 de la OPA, la Oficina de Evaluación de Propiedades. Durante el año pasado, aproximadamente 600,000 propiedades en Filadelfia, residenciales, comerciales e industriales, fueron evaluadas para reflejar su valor de mercado actual y justo en comparación con propiedades similares en la ciudad. Su notificación indica el valor de mercado real de su propiedad para el año fiscal 2014, según lo determinaron los profesionales de evaluación de la OPA. Encontrará esta cifra en la parte superior de la notificación, debajo de su nombre y dirección. El valor es un estimado del valor de venta de la propiedad al día de hoy. Si piensa que este nuevo valor es incorrecto, puede apelar contra la evaluación. Le alegrará saber que la ciudad ha hecho el proceso de apelación mucho más sencillo de lo que era anteriormente. Por primera vez, la OPA ofrecerá una revisión de primer nivel. Un tasador reconsiderará el valor de su propiedad basándose en la información que usted brinde sin necesidad de una audiencia en persona. Usted simplemente completa el formulario de revisión de primer nivel que recibió con su notificación, asegurándose de enviarlo por correo antes del 31 de marzo de 2013. Si necesita un nuevo formulario, puede descargarlo de este sitio web. Pero antes de que proceda, debe asegurarse de tener una razón válida para apelar. Hay 3 razones válidas para apelar. Primera, valor de mercado incorrecto. Si usted cree que el valor de mercado es significativamente más alto o más bajo del valor de venta de la propiedad. Segunda, falta de uniformidad. Si usted cree que la evaluación no concuerda con la de otras propiedades similares a la suya. Y tercera, una desgravación o exención incorrecta, si usted cree que la porción del valor imponible indicado es incorrecto. Si cree que cualquiera de estas razones es válida, deberá respaldar su reclamación. Recuerde, usted está cuestionando si el valor asignado a la propiedad es correcto, no el monto de impuestos que deberá pagar. Deberá proveer su propio estimado del valor de tasación correcto y podrá incluir pruebas adicionales tales como evaluaciones y fotografías de la propiedad para respaldar el argumento de solicitud de revisión del valor de la propiedad. Si usted es propietario de una propiedad comercial, también deberá presentar información sobre ingresos y gastos. Para eso, hay planillas en la página web de la OPA. Una vez sometidas todas las solicitudes de revisión de primer nivel, la OPA las examinará una por una. Este proceso continuará durante la primavera y principio del verano. Como parte de su revisión, podríamos pedir hablar con usted por teléfono o en persona e inspeccionar su propiedad. Una vez completada la revisión, la OPA podría aumentar o reducir el valor de la propiedad o no hacer cambios y le notificará sobre su decisión. Si usted no está de acuerdo con la decisión, puede presentar una apelación formal de segundo nivel a la Junta de Revisión de Impuestos. Las apelaciones formales deben presentarse antes del primer lunes de octubre. Si no está satisfecho con el resultado de esta apelación de segundo nivel, puede elevar su caso a un tercer nivel final presentando una apelación ante el Tribunal de Acciones Civiles. Recuerde, usted está apelando contra la nueva evaluación de su propiedad, no contra sus nuevos impuestos. Su cuota tributaria para el 2013 estará basada en la nueva tasa impositiva que determinarán el alcalde y el ayuntamiento antes del 31 de mayo de este año al preparar el presupuesto. Si tiene preguntas sobre la revisión de primer nivel o necesita copias de los formularios que debe presentar, llámenos al 215-686-9200 o visite la página web que ve en la pantalla.